Tonight, the Department of Justice asking to unseal the search warrant for Mar-a-Lago. Attorney General Merrick Garland in front of the cameras today defending the FBI, saying he personally approved the warrant served at the home of former President Trump. The department also moving to make more details of the search public, including what was found inside. And this as NBC News learns about a subpoena served to Trump months before the search. What comes next and how the former president is responding. Also, the Mar-a-Lago search may have been the motive behind a brazen attack at an FBI building in Cincinnati today. A man armed with an AR-15 firing a nail gun inside before fleeing. Authorities now confirming he was at the Capitol on January 6th. Our live report from Cincinnati. Some relief at the pump. The average price of a gallon of gas falling below $4 for the first time in 5 months. Will this downward trend continue? The wildfire emergency in Europe. Monster fires now ravaging France's famed wine region. 10,000 people evacuated and more than a dozen homes destroyed. The conditions fueling those flames. Model to murder? The OnlyFans model and influencer arrested in Hawaii for killing her boyfriend in Miami. What she told her millions of followers about his death. And the heartbreaking video showing a carriage horse collapsing in New York City as a crowd of people looked on. The debate tonight to end the rides popular with tourists. Top story starts right now. Good evening. I'm Gadi Schwartz in for Tom Llamas. We begin tonight with Attorney General Merrick Garland breaking his silence on that FBI search of former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. In a rare move, Garland, before the cameras, defending the actions of both the FBI and the Department of Justice, even saying he signed off on the search warrant served at the Palm Beach resort and that his department is asking to make what was found at Mar-a-Lago public. Trump defending himself in a statement shortly after, claiming that his lawyers were, quote, cooperating fully and saying he would have given the government anything they asked for. But some of his supporters have called for protests and even violence against the FBI. And today, a man armed with an AR-15 storming the agency's field office in Cincinnati. We just learned that that suspect was also at the Capitol on January 6th. Stephanie Gosk is there, and we'll have the late-breaking details in just a few moments. But first, we begin with senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, who leads us off again tonight.
In an extraordinary appearance, the Attorney General made a careful exception to the usual secrecy of investigations. Under pressure to explain the Monday search of former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home and office.
First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly.
Merrick Garland moved to make more about the unprecedented search public. The Justice Department filed this motion asking a federal court in Florida to unseal the Trump warrant, which would include the inventory of items seized by the FBI. The public's clear and powerful interest in understanding what occurred under these circumstances weighs heavily in favor of unsealing. Garland argues that Mr. Trump, in effect, waived the confidentiality that is typically provided.
The former president publicly confirmed the search that evening, as is his right.
Late today, the court ordered the Justice Department to meet with Donald Trump's lawyers to determine if they oppose unsealing the warrant, giving them until Friday afternoon to respond. Today, the Attorney General suggested that a court-approved FBI search might have been avoidable, but without explaining why.
Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search.
According to sources, a June 3rd subpoena was delivered to the office of the former president, requiring classified and government documents be turned over. Then a meeting was set up to retrieve them. Mr. Trump stopped by. At that time, officials asked to see the storage room, and the former president agreed. Days later, authorities sent an email to request better security, and a second lock was added. Weeks passed until the August 8th search. Today, the former president posted a comment. My attorneys and representatives were cooperating fully. The government could have had whatever they wanted. His daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, says she wanted more answers from Garland.
A lot of Americans were looking for something, anything that they could look to from the Attorney General that would reassure them that this was not a political attack.
Garland clearly had another, more personal reason to come forward.
I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked.
denouncing what he called unfounded attacks against law enforcement and prosecutors, some of that fueled by Trump supporters this week.
They protect the American people from violent crime, terrorism, and other threats to their safety while safeguarding our civil rights. They do so at great personal sacrifice and risk to themselves.
And Kelly O'Donnell joins us now from Washington, D.C. Kelly, we might learn that the items federal agents were looking for, right? But not the why.
So many questions on this, Gotti, and the Attorney General didn't answer questions today. And we do know the department is not seeking to make public the affidavit, which lays out the probable cause that a crime was committed. That is the basis that a judge approved the FBI search in the first place. And that would tell us much more about what investigators believe is going on beyond government property and classified documents. And another interesting issue we have to watch over the next 24 hours is what will the former president do about all of this? He has had these documents himself, including things like the inventory of items that were seized. He could make them public if he wants to. And the New York Times has already reported that some Trump allies have contacted outside counsel, and they might be willing to challenge the motion that's been brought by the Department of Justice, not wanting to unseal the documents. Gotti?
Kelly, thank you. For more on this latest twist in the ongoing legal saga of the former president, I want to bring in NBC News legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner. Glenn, right now there's two documents that we're really looking at, the warrants and then the inventory of items seized. Do you think that we'll see any specific details on what was taken, like a smoking gun, if one exists? Or could this just give information like the number of pages that were taken without actually saying what those documents were?
Well, so we're going to get some limited information, probably not as much as we would like. It does seem that if the judge agrees with the government and unseals, we will see a property inventory. So we'll see a list of what was taken from Mar-a-Lago, but I suspect it will be heavily redacted. I reviewed the government's motion to unseal limited warrant materials. That's in the caption. So that gives us a hint that we're only going to get part of what was involved in that filing. And they say in that motion that they will be giving over some of these things in redacted form. That's not surprising because we're dealing with classified materials, potentially top secret materials. So we would expect the government to want to redact anything that's sensitive that shouldn't be disclosed publicly. So I think we're going to get a little bit less than we would like. As Kelly just said, it sounds like they're not prepared to give over the affidavit. That's the most telling and the most informative part of a warrant packet, because that will have all of the evidence that persuaded the FBI, persuaded the DOJ, and persuaded the federal judge that there was probable cause to believe there was evidence of crime right now located on Mar-a-Lago. That is why the judge would have issued the search warrant.
Now, Glenn, it's pretty clear that a lot of people were hoping for more information out of this press conference. Normally, when law enforcement is concerned about preserving the facts of a case, it's because they're worried that a potential jury might hear too much beforehand. But when you're charging the former president of the United States, doesn't that concern kind of go out the window?
You know, we always want to ensure a fair trial for every single defendant, up to and including the president of the United States, if he ends up being criminally indicted. That is why the prosecutors typically will not speak before a trial. We don't want to poison the jury pool, give them information that they wouldn't otherwise have. So I think, one, it's to ensure a fair trial. Two, it's to not compromise an ongoing investigation. But, Gotti, once the president starts talking about the warrant being executed, once we start to hear misrepresentations, outright lies, disinformation, we've already heard one of the president's lawyers accusing the FBI of possibly planting evidence, then I think the ground shifts. And I think the Department of Justice has every reason to make what disclosures it can to correct the record and make sure the public is not poisoned with propaganda or disinformation. It is a tough balance for AG Merrick Garland to strike.
And Glenn, we know that Trump's legal team has been given a deadline, when we're talking about the timeline here, of 3 o'clock tomorrow to identify any potential confidentiality or privacy concerns. Do you think we'll see a delay after that?
Not much of one. So I suspect, Donald Trump and his lawyers will have a decision to make. Does he want to object to the unsealing and continue to conceal this information from the American people, I suspect he will probably oppose it. But regardless of the position Donald Trump and his defense team take, I suspect the judge will go with the Department of Justice request to unseal because of the searing public interest and the need to try to keep the record as accurate and factual as it can be kept and respond to any misstatements or outright disinformation being put out there into the public square by the president and his team. So I suspect the judge will probably grant the motion to unseal, and it wouldn't shock me if we saw a decision as early as Monday.
Glenn, thank you. And also breaking tonight, an armed attack on an FBI field office in Cincinnati. Federal agents say a gunman tried to breach the building and was wearing body armor. Anti-FBI rhetoric ramping up after the raid on Mar-a-Lago. NBC's Stephanie Gosk is in Cincinnati with a dramatic ending. And Stephanie, we're learning the suspect has ties to January 6th, right?
Yeah, that's right, Gotti. And moments ago, we found out the suspect is dead, and he died in a standoff in that cornfield. Two officials with knowledge of the matter tell us that his name was Ricky Walter Schiffer and that he was at the Capitol on January 6th. Tonight in Ohio, a violent hours-long standoff is over after authorities cornered a man who tried to break into the FBI building in Cincinnati.
He's come to his injuries at the scene.
At 9:15 this morning, the man entered the visitor screening area of the FBI field office, wielding an AR-15 style rifle and a nail gun, which he fired at people, according to two law enforcement sources. The suspect then fled in his car, speeding off onto the interstate. At 9:37, state police tried to stop the car, but couldn't, leading to a chase through country roads.
Subject supposed to be armed with body armor, fired several shots at officers.
The standoff in a cornfield lasted for hours, with more reports of gunfire.
Once the vehicle came to a stop, gunfire was exchanged between officers on scene and the suspect.
Residents were told to stay inside, and the highway was shut down in both directions. The suspect's motive is unknown, but the incident took place 2 days after federal agents searched Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. FBI Director Christopher Wray was asked yesterday if he was worried the search could trigger retaliation against the FBI.
Any threats made against law enforcement, including the men and women of the FBI, as with any law enforcement agency, are deplorable and dangerous.
Some Republicans responded to the search warrant with calls to take down the agency, including one congressman who tweeted, "We must destroy the FBI," while online some extremists made direct threats. Meanwhile, in Ohio, relief that a dangerous confrontation is over. State police say no law enforcement were injured.
And Stephanie, what do we know about how the standoff ended?
Well, it's actually pretty remarkable, Gotti, that no law enforcement were injured when you hear about the back and forth. But state police say they actually tried to negotiate with this suspect and tried to end this with non-lethal methods. But when he pulled his gun and started firing, they fired back. Gotti?
Stephanie, thank you. For more analysis on this and other threats of violence against the United States or the FBI, let's bring in Manny Gomez. He is the president of MG Security and is also a retired FBI agent and a sergeant with the NYPD. Manny, we've now learned this suspect was at the January 6th riots. Are you concerned that we could see more people taking violent action?
Totally. At any case like this, when we talk about whether it's terrorism, whether it's domestic or international or crimes of mass destruction, we are always worried about the copycat. We're worried about people that see this. They see the public attention that they're getting. There's a lot of very angry people at what happened at Mar-a-Lago. They're angry at the government. They've been angry at the government over the 2020 election, and they are voicing their opinions, and they're voicing them very harshly. Assassination calls for the Attorney General, killing of FBI agents, getting rid of the FBI by public officials in and of themselves. This reminds me of the defund the police movement that we saw in recent years. And we need the FBI. They are our first line of defense when it comes to international and domestic terrorism, and they will continue to be so. And so these folks put their lives on the line every time they confront a lethal person such as what happened today. And believe me, the FBI is well trained and has the resources to protect themselves. But that being said, when you have people that are this angry, this violent, this aggressive, obviously we have somebody who was at this riot in January 6th, and he comes and he does this against a headquarters office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You have somebody who obviously has issues, but that those issues translate or could translate into somebody being killed. And so we need to be vigilant. We need to have the intelligence available to see who is potentially putting out all these hateful, violent emails causing people to react in a similar manner, because this is not going to end just with today's standoff, unfortunately.
And Manny, there's a big difference between somebody that might be in like a basement posting about this online and then political leaders also expressing anti-FBI rhetoric. Do you think that raises the stakes here?
Absolutely. I mean, we're just having hearings about January 6th and the storming of the Capitol and what part the former president of the United States had in it, and other folks in government perhaps had in it. And here we have yet once again elected officials posting on the internet that action needs to be taken, and that action is not warm and fuzzy. That action is actually aggressive and could eventually resort in violence against the FBI, violence against the Department of Justice, violence against law enforcement officers. And this is something that's unacceptable. And I'm sure the FBI and other agencies are trying to identify those people. They will be investigated, interviewed, and to be able to stop what could possibly be another incident.
Manny, thank you. Turning now to inflation and a sign that things might have peaked. The average price of gas has now dropped below $4 a gallon. That's the lowest since March, and there are more positive signs. Here's Tom Costello.
While the national pump price average is dropping, now below $4 a gallon, an NBC News sampling found prices can vary greatly. $3.33 in Dallas, $3.69 in Hillsborough, North Carolina, $3.83 on the Jersey Shore, $4.32 in Philly, $4.79 in Chicago, $5.05 near Portland, Oregon, and $6.29 at this station in Los Angeles. While pump prices have dropped from a national high of $5.01 in June,
I can really see the difference from 2 months ago to now, and it's beautiful for me.
they're still 81 cents higher than a year ago.
Oh, awful. It's almost $120.
While analysts predict prices could drop to $3.90 by Labor Day, hurricane season poses a big risk.
So that could knock the refineries offline for a period of time, and that could increase prices nationally.
Also potentially driving prices up, the U.S. will stop tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in October, which President Biden ordered to offset price hikes from the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, more evidence today that inflation may have peaked in June. Producer prices, what manufacturers pay, dropped 0.5% in July, the first decline since April of 2020, though still up almost 10% from a year ago. That news coming after July consumer inflation, what you pay, remained unchanged from June, but still up 8.5% in a year. For family-owned Mashburn Construction in South Carolina, inflation and a labor shortage continue to pose serious challenges.
It is a long list of price increases. It seems like almost everything in the economy has gotten more expensive.
Tom joins us now from Washington. Tom, back to the gas prices. It seems like there's a lot of speculation out there that prices aren't going to be moving lower anytime soon, right?
I think that's right. I mean, listen, $3.99 is the national average. Look behind me. We're in the shadow of Capitol Hill, $4.89 right here, right? And we've seen it much higher out in your home state of California. So $3.99, the national average. Most experts I talk to think that, in fact, gas is going to straddle the $4 a gallon mark nationally. 25 cents either side of that. We've already seen oil prices moving higher, so it's likely that gas prices will follow. Listen, this is very, very difficult to predict where gas and oil markets are going to go, but do not think that we're headed back to $2.50 a gallon. That would be a pipe dream.
Thanks, Tom. Now to breaking news in the ongoing fight against COVID-19. The CDC changing its guidance for schools and now saying people don't need to quarantine if exposed to COVID. The agency also recommending schools focus on routine testing only for high-risk activities like contact sports. NBC News medical correspondent Dr. John Torres joins us now in the studio. Dr. John, back to school just around the corner. A lot of parents are looking at this and wondering, does this mean that they shouldn't be worried about their kids catching COVID-19? What should they be thinking?
We're still in the midst of the pandemic, and so make no illusions there. We're still seeing 100,000 cases a day, 400 deaths a day, and so those numbers are still there, but we're 2.5 years into it. People are used to it, and what the CDC said is that 95% of us have some form of immunity, from natural immunity from catching the disease, vaccinations, boosters. We have some level of immunity, so they feel people are fairly protected. And at this point, they're saying we can change things a little bit. More of a clarification and saying, okay, instead of dividing it between vaccinated and unvaccinated, since so many people have immunity, or at least partial immunity, let's go ahead and give it to everybody. Kind of blanket rules here, blanket guidance. And that's like you mentioned, going to school, they're not recommending quarantine anymore if you came in contact with somebody. At schools, they're not doing the test to stay policy anymore. They're pulling that back, and they're saying, let's do this from a more logical perspective of, if you need to isolate, you isolate for 5 days, and then you go out and about for the next 5 days, but you keep a mask on. If you have to quarantine, you have a mask for 10 days. You make sure you do that, and you test in between there.
And Dr. John, you just said 400 deaths a day. That is still pretty staggering. What do we know about these deaths? Are there any specifics?
So the deaths a day are kind of what they have been all along. The concern is what's going to happen with Omicron, especially the BA.5, because there's breakthroughs. And right now, these 400 or so cases a day, unvaccinated, the elderly, those that are immunocompromised, those that even though they're vaccinated, the vaccine might not be working very well because their immune systems aren't working very well. Those are the ones. But we're also seeing breakthrough infections. And so people getting vaccinated, if they're not boosted or vaccinated, fully boosted, then they could have issues as well. So that's the concern.
And we've got the updated booster shots that are coming out next month. And then you've also got a race against time before the next variant comes out. Do you think that these boosters that we're about to see are going to protect from future variants?
I do think so, because they're doing a couple things. One, it's a bivalent. It has two viruses. It has the wild virus, the original strain back when this pandemic first started, and it has BA.5 in there. And so it's going to cover both those bases there. One thing about Omicron is that seems to have been stabilizing out. And every variant you hear of now, instead of being Alpha, Delta, Omicron, they're all Omicron variants or subvariants. And so that seems to be stabilizing. Could another variant pop out? Definitely. So we just need to keep on our toes.
Dr. John, thanks so much for joining us. And tonight there is a tragic update regarding the disappearance of a New England girl last seen when she was only 5 years old. Today, New Hampshire officials announcing they have reason to believe the little girl was murdered. There has been no shortage of questions surrounding the case, including allegations of gross oversight by children welfare agencies. George Solis has the latest details.
Tonight, heartbreak in New England.
This is also devastating news for the city of Manchester, for our state, and all who have followed this story.
After 7 months of investigation centering on the disappearance of little Harmony Montgomery, officials late today in New Hampshire revealing the worst fears.
All of these efforts have led us to conclude that Harmony Montgomery was murdered in Manchester in early December of 2019.
This case has now become a homicide investigation.
Our investigators will continue to seek justice and look into the circumstances of Harmony's murder.
Today, officials emotional while announcing the little girl's body has not been found, but have found biological evidence that led to the tragic conclusion.
Our commitment to bringing Harmony home has not wavered, nor will it.
In 2019, when she was just 5 years old, authorities say she was living with her father, Adam Montgomery, in Manchester, New Hampshire. The child in and out of foster care before eventually ending up in her father's custody. Police say Montgomery told him he last saw his daughter around Thanksgiving in 2019 when he gave her to her biological mother, Crystal Sorey. Prosecutors have said That never happened. 2 years later, Sori reported Harmony missing to Manchester police. Today, Sori speaking publicly for the first time following the announcement.
Such a sweet little girl. Any child, no child deserves this. But she was so innocent.
Authorities still not shedding light why it took so long before she was reported missing.
I know that over the past 8 months that there have been many discussions, speculation, and questions relative to where the system failed Harmony. And I myself continue to share the same concerns.
Adam Montgomery has been described by authorities as a career criminal. He's been in jail since February on a slew of criminal charges alleging abuse against Harmony, to which he has pleaded not guilty. In June, authorities from multiple agencies raided his New Hampshire home. Adam's uncle spoke with our Boston affiliate this year about one specific encounter with Harmony that raised red flags.
I walked in the house and Harmony had a black guy like you see in a boxing match between two men. He bashed her around the apartment.
As of now, no one has been charged regarding Harmony's disappearance. The focus for officials, finding her killer and providing closure to a family and community hurting by this tragic loss.
The Manchester Police Department will do everything within the limits of the law to ensure that the responsible person or persons for the murder of Harmony are brought to justice.
And George Solis joins us live. George, what are authorities saying about any potential suspects?
Yeah, Gotti, if officials know, they're certainly not saying today, not answering any questions at that news conference, citing an ongoing homicide investigation. But officials do know that there is a $150,000 reward on the table for anyone that may have information about the whereabouts of the little girl's remains. Gotti?
George, thank you. Turning now to the war in Ukraine, and new satellite images showing Russian warplanes destroyed by explosions in Crimea, and officials urging evacuations due to potential radiation leaks outside of Ukraine's largest nuclear power plant. NBC's Morgan Chesky is on the ground with the latest.
The massive cloud of smoke poured over Russian-controlled Crimea. Alarms blaring from explosions shocking beachgoers. The fiery strike at a Russian airfield Tuesday destroyed a weapons depot. And new satellite photos confirming 9 Russian fighter jets seen before the strike now all appear to be destroyed. Ukraine not claiming or denying responsibility. And as more explosions rock the area surrounding Ukraine's largest nuclear power plant, officials are urging children and pregnant women living nearby to evacuate. In a Zaporizhzhia hospital, former plant mechanic Serhiy Shevets told me after Russians took over in March, anyone pro-Ukraine disappeared or died.
When you saw about a dozen Russian soldiers outside your home, what was your first thought?
He says his only thought, grab his military AK-47 and hide. Seconds later, a shootout. Serhiy showing where Russian bullets struck his leg, arm, stomach, and cheek. He was expected to die.
Amazing.
Tonight, over a handshake and smile. Serhiy tells us when he leaves here, it will be to take up arms yet again, to drive Russia from his home.
And tonight, Ukrainian officials say what makes this nuclear situation even more precarious is the fact Russia's damaged 3 of this plant's 4 lines. And should that last one fail, the entire facility would run off of diesel generators. And after that, there's no backup. Gotti?
Morgan, thank you. And now to the devastating wildfires across Europe. Thousands of people evacuated as the flames rage on. Ongoing heat waves and drought now threatening multiple countries in the region. In France, wine country is now under watch as thousands of firefighters are deployed to fight the flames. NBC's Matt Bradley has more.
Tonight, wildfires raging across Europe. Germany, Portugal, and France among some of the countries seeing the most devastation from historic fires this summer. In southwestern France, video shows the sky tinted with a fiery red as wildfires burn through the region and across the country, including a monster wildfire near the city of Bordeaux, known for its wine, being fought by more than 1,000 firefighters.
Le feu se propageant de nuit, on s'est retrouvé vraiment dans une situation extrêmement difficile, un feu qui est arrivé très violent et très rapidement sur la zone. Et voilà, on a protégé l'essentiel des maisons du hameau. Malheureusement, plusieurs maisons ont été détruites.
Officials say 9 aircraft and 2 helicopters have been deployed as well. So far, more than 10,000 people have been evacuated, at least 17 homes destroyed, and tonight, a major highway closed.
On a eu de la chance, on a eu des maisons
qui ont été sauvés, mais après, vous voyez les catastrophes autour, là-bas, il y a des maisons qui n'ont pas pu être sauvées.
The country caught in its worst scenario, an unprecedented drought met with a historic heat wave, the fourth one this summer alone, temperatures breaking 100 degrees. More than 6,200 hectares have burned in the Gironde region in this latest wildfire. The region, known for its pine forests, was already ravaged by flames last month. 39,000 people were forced to evacuate. Now farmers and fishermen are facing a tough reality. Rivers running dry, experts calling this the worst drought in 500 years. Thousands of dead fish lay on top of old riverbeds.
Donc là, on l'a vu, il y a pas mal de poissons qui sont morts, d'autres qui sont en souffrance encore. Donc là, voilà, c'est cours d'eau en voie d'assèchement quasiment total.
Crops are drying up and livestock is suffering from the heat and lack of grass.
On est obligé d'emmener à manger aux animaux qui sont sur cette prairie parce que la pousse de l'herbe aujourd'hui suffit pas à subvenir aux besoins des animaux.
As of tonight, the fires and the drought continue. Matt Bradley, NBC News.
And still ahead tonight, the influencer and OnlyFans model arrested in Hawaii, accused of killing her boyfriend inside their Miami apartment, while she's saying it was self-defense. Plus, the disturbing video of a carriage horse collapsing in New York City in the sweltering heat. The reignited debate to take the animals off the streets. And the new details just in that fiery crash involving actress Anne Heche. What authorities say was in her system at the time of that crash. Stay with us. We're back now with the shocking arrest of an OnlyFans model in Hawaii. Police taking a 26-year-old woman into custody. She's accused of stabbing and killing her boyfriend in Miami back in April. And tonight, police are releasing new details that prompted the arrest. Here's NBC's Kristen Dahlgren.
From photo shoot to mugshot, Courtney Clenny, a popular 26-year-old OnlyFans model, was arrested in Hawaii on Wednesday, suspected of stabbing her boyfriend to death in Miami back in April.
We are charging 26-year-old Courtney Taylor Clenny with one count of second-degree murder in Christian's death. I'm told that she was on a remote island. We felt that the prudent thing to do, that the right thing to do, was to go and get her and secure her presence.
Her lawyer, Frank Pietro, said she was arrested while in rehabilitation for substance abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder. 27-year-old Christian Toby Obumseli was found dead at the couple's high-rise condo in Miami on April 3rd. Miami-Dade state attorney laying out a history of arguments and fights between them during a press conference Thursday, saying noise complaints were common, releasing a video showing Clenny previously beating Obumseli during an argument. Police were even called to the apartment only 2 days before the killing. Obumseli's family attorney was there too.
She had a history of attacking. What you saw in the elevator was just an isolated glimpse of a pattern of conduct that was demonstrated by the defendant.
The social media star with millions of followers telling police she stabbed Obumseli in self-defense. In a statement, Clenny's lawyer said he was completely shocked with the arrest and that, quote, Obumseli attacked her and choked her that evening. Courtney had no choice but to meet force with force. Miami police had previously described Obumseli's death as a domestic violence-related incident. Back in April, Obumseli's family spoke to reporters questioning the investigation.
We have no cause to believe that this was a case of self-defense. Toby was raised by a very strong family with strong morals, strong values. This was somehow warranted is unthinkable.
Authorities say Clenny is set to be extradited back to Florida.
And Kristen Dahlgren joins us now live. Kristen, did police release any other details about the incident that led them to arrest Clenny?
Right, Gotti. Well, they say on the day of the incident that Clenny told them that Christian slammed her and choked her, leading her to throw a knife about 10 feet across a room. But today, authorities say they saw no evidence that matched up with that story. They say the medical examiner said that the stab wound that killed Christian was from a downward stab, and that would not at all be consistent with a knife being thrown, Gotti.
Thank you, Kristen. Moving now to New York City, where a horse pulling a carriage collapsed in the street. Shocked onlookers capturing the moment on video. Now, once again, opinions are swirling over whether horse-drawn carriages, a popular tourist attraction, should be banned once and for all. NBC's Stephen Romo has more.
Tonight, outrage over disturbing images of a horse laid out in distress.
No excuse for animal abuse.
After a working horse named Ryder collapsed in a New York street Wednesday.
I heard this thud, and I look over my shoulder, and there's this creature in the middle of 9th Avenue. He was struggling to get up, and the driver of the carriage was trying to help him get up.
Heartbreaking video shows police officers trying to cool the animal down with water and ice as New Yorkers looked on.
The guy immediately got off the horse carriage, and he started whipping and saying, "Get up, get up." I'm like, bro, don't whip your horse. Like, he obviously needs some water. He looks dehydrated.
It was really hard to watch, honestly. You know, my personal feelings, it's not the 1800s. There's no need for that in New York City.
While carriage rides are a New York attraction for visitors from around the world,
can't go to Central Park without thinking about the carriages.
Peak tourist season comes with peak temperatures.
If you think it's been hot, you are absolutely correct.
Begging the question, how hot is too hot for these horses?
I think it is too hot for the horses. I mean, I understand that it's real festive, it's real New York. Maybe we can wait till the heat wave is over and then maybe resume back after the 90 degrees are over with.
But the union rep for carriage drivers says the summer heat is not the culprit here, adding that horses aren't allowed out on especially hot and humid days, and the temperatures were safe when Ryder collapsed.
They were hosing the horse down as a precaution, but they checked all of his vitals. He had good temperature, good, color in his gums, everything like that.
The union says the vet made a preliminary diagnosis of EPM, a neurological infection caused by possum droppings. Ryder's fall reigniting a years-long debate about whether the horses should be put to work and whether there should be more regulations in place. Seen by some as iconic.
Very corny.
Nope. Classic.
And others as inhumane.
You deserve to be free.
The scene has played out time and time again in pop culture, but advocates have tried to have the practice banned in the city, saying horse-drawn carriages are cruel and unsafe, calling on local politicians to step up.
They are aiding and abetting this egregious animal abuse.
This after former Mayor Bill de Blasio promised to end the practice while campaigning almost a decade ago.
They're not humane. They're not appropriate to the year 2014. It's over.
But he finished 2 terms, and the promise is unfulfilled. Last year, current Mayor Eric Adams said he was open to discussing the issue, but did not commit to supporting a ban.
And Stephen Romo joins us now from Central Park. Stephen, so many people wondering right now, how is Ryder doing this evening?
Yeah, so much concern for that horse. We spoke to the carriage union reps again this evening, and they say he is eating and drinking, but they're still waiting for the blood test to come back to see if they can confirm that diagnosis. And if it is confirmed, he's likely going to have to retire. Meanwhile, those animal rights advocates we were mentioning, they're saying that regardless if this was heat or illness or overwork, they say that there's no excuse to treat a horse that way. They say that right now they're concerned because they were able to count the ribs in that video. They were able to count Ryder's ribs. So they're asking the NYPD to investigate this. Gotti?
Stephen, thank you. When we come back, workplace homicide. At least 1 employee killed and another arrested at a General Motors plant. What authorities say happened next. Back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with the homicide investigation at a General Motors assembly plant in Michigan. Officials say a fight broke out between 2 co-workers at the Pontiac plant earlier this morning. 1 man was found unconscious and bleeding. He later died from his injuries. That second employee was arrested. The plant remains closed tonight. Next to the latest on that deadly home explosion in Indiana, that blast captured on camera in Evansville. Authorities are still investigating the cause, saying natural gas was not detected outside the structure. No work was being done in that area, and no one reported smelling gas beforehand. At least 3 people were killed. 15 families are currently displaced. Actress Anne Heche now being investigated for felony DUI after that fiery crash that left her in a coma. Police revealing drugs were found in her system at the time of the crash. They didn't provide any further details. Now, Heche remains in a coma and is on a ventilator after she crashed in Los Angeles into a home last Friday. Now, the U.S. Postal Service will temporarily raise its prices this holiday season. The price increase will depend on the weight of the package and the distance of the delivery. Long-distance deliveries could see increases of more than $6. That change will go into effect on October 2nd. Now, the agency says the hike will help cover extra handling costs and allow them to remain competitive during the peak shipping season. Turning now to Money Talks, what consumers and investors need to know from the business world and beyond. In the crypto world, social media influencers can make major money by doling out advice to their many followers. But in some cases, regulators say these influencers are promoting straight up fraud. Here's CNBC's senior Washington correspondent, Eamon Javers.
The latest digital currencies.
If there were ever a time to start paying attention to the altcoin market, it is right now.
The newest metaverse projects.
An upcoming metaverse casino.
Are all being hyped on platforms like YouTube.
I could generate passive income every single month.
The people promoting these ventures, dubbed crypto influencers, are racking up views by peddling projects promising skyrocketing profits. But as amateur investors flock to social platforms for the next big thing,
as many of you know, I'm officially a partner with Distex.
Our investigation found some of these promotions have left investors financially devastated, while some influencers cash in.
Welcome to BitBoy Crypto.
Ben Armstrong is one of the most watched crypto influencers on YouTube.
In the fall of 2020, you promoted Distex, calling it your most trusted coin, down 99%, valued at less than a penny now. Do you take any responsibility for the losses suffered by your viewers when they see a recommendation by you, they go out and buy that stuff, and it craters?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course I do. I mean, I do feel, I hate it when we talked about stuff that didn't do well. I mean, Bitcoin was still kind of 50-50 at that point, it seemed.
With nearly 1.5 million YouTube subscribers,
I've got a lot to say about a lot of stuff.
And more than 800,000 followers on Twitter, which has allowed him to earn more than $30,000 for a single YouTube endorsement.
I could easily, make over 100K a month doing that.
That kind of money has encouraged other crypto influencers to swarm this lucrative market. This spring, an anonymous blockchain sleuth posted a list on Twitter naming 44 YouTube crypto personalities and their prices for paid promotions. We reached out to these influencers to verify their fees. Some said these prices were inflated. Those willing to share their pricing said they made a minimum of $1,000 for each promotional video. And unlike Armstrong, some promoters don't disclose they're getting handsomely paid to plug projects.
Not disclosing, I mean, that's a surefire way to get yourself in big trouble.
Joe Rotunda, the director of the enforcement division of the Texas State Securities Board, says he's seen paid promotions that are not only non-disclosed, but push fraudulent ventures.
We're seeing scams, we're seeing frauds. There's a lot more out there.
Rotunda and a team of regulators recently filed enforcement actions against 2 metaverse casinos for trying to defraud retail investors by selling unregistered securities. The order says one of the influencers was recruiting promoters to engage and pay him to advertise their products through his YouTube channel. Rotunda also found messages on a popular chat platform. That said, another influencer brought in a lot of investors from their videos.
We uncovered this by seeing a promotion on YouTube. A influencer who publishes videos at a very rapid pace uses hyperbole in the titles. And these are scary, right?
But because it's so early, you have no idea what's real and what's not real.
That's exactly right.
When there's money to be made, people will do anything to make money.
Taylor Monahan, the product lead of the popular digital currency wallet called MetaMask, says she's also wary of these YouTube personalities.
I would urge anyone, even if they consider themselves legitimate, to not form these faux partnerships, any sort of paying for influence, paying for replies, paying for followers.
19,670 coins.
That's a realization Armstrong came to when he stopped producing sponsored content in January.
It's been a lot of a burden off of me because I don't have to worry about dealing with any of these people, and I can just say what I want to say. It's a good way to build your business, but you just have to do it in an honest way.
Eamon Javers joins us now. Eamon, so these are crypto influencers that are very public, right? A lot of times you see their followers actually start blasting them in the comment sections, saying they've lost money. Sometimes even in the very video comment sections that's full of this sketchy advice. Have any of these influencers tried to make up for that crypto advice that ends up costing people a lot of money?
Yeah, you know, Armstrong, who you saw in the piece there, says that because he felt guilty for heavily promoting Distex, the coin that later crashed, he did use the money he made from the paid promotion to refund viewers who had invested in the project. The total crypto market cap now down 49% year to date. And in that bear market, Armstrong tells me that the less legitimate crypto influencers are probably going to face increased scrutiny. They might ghost their subscribers. And I should point out that we reached out to the two influencers we showed who promoted the metaverse casinos accused of defrauding investors about whether they have taken undisclosed payments for promotion. The influencer known as Flozin says he wasn't paid to promote the metaverse casino, but deleted his promotional video after we started asking questions about it, Gotti.
And Eamon, there's scrutiny and then there's also regulation. Have we seen any headway in regulating crypto, or is this basically the Wild West?
It is still the Wild West. There's an enormous fight going on behind the scenes in Washington right now to figure out which regulatory agency is going to be the one ultimately in charge of all this stuff. The industry has a point of view. The regulatory agencies have a point of view. All that's still to be sorted out. So at this point, it's not clear who's going to be in charge of writing the rules of the road for all this. And so all these influencers on YouTube are sort of setting their own ethical standards as they go along. And this industry is beginning to mature, but it's got a long way to go.
Eamon, thank you. Coming up, the hours-long standoff overseas. An armed man holding hostages inside a bank in Lebanon. What he was demanding and how the tense situation finally came to an end. Back now with Top Stories Global Watch and the hostage standoff at a bank in Beirut, Lebanon. New video shows the man armed with a large gun after he took 10 hostages. Authorities say he was demanding the bank let him withdraw his frozen funds so he could pay for his father's medical bills. After a 7-hour standoff, he surrendered in exchange for $35,000 of his own money. A major fire broke and destroyed a beloved market in southwestern Japan. A new video shows flames ripping through the row of businesses, some in operation for more than 80 years. It took more than 16 hours to put that fire out. Authorities think it started when some tempura oil caught fire. Another large fire hit that same market back in April. And the alarming new report on global warming. New research found the Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the globe. That is significantly faster than previously thought. And experts say the rapid Arctic warming is leading to rising sea levels and even impacts extreme weather events like heat waves and flooding in North America and abroad. And when we come back, to the rescue, a 17-year-old performing life-saving CPR on a man after a car crash. The incredible moment that survivor was able to say thank you. Finally tonight, the fast-acting fire cadet now being hailed as a hero. The firefighter in training putting his CPR skills to good use, saving a man's life after a horrific car crash. That man and his family now saying thank you.
The patch on Leo Kaufman's sleeve is stitched only with the word cadet. Don't let that fool you. This firefighter in training has what it takes.
This is quite an incredible example of someone stepping up, one of our LAFD cadets, going above and beyond that expectation.
Last year, when Leo was just 17 years old, he saw the aftermath of this horrific car crash. That's when Cadet Kaufman jumped into action. He didn't hesitate to put his training to work, quickly starting chest compressions.
I actually wasn't very nervous. I just tunneled in, tunnel vision kind of. I focused on my training, what I was taught, and I just performed the CPR, the compressions.
Those critical moments of CPR likely saved Dennis Platt's life.
If he wasn't there, I wouldn't be here.
We always knew somebody, a Pacific person, stepped up and saved Dad's life, but we never got to meet them.
That all changed last month. After a long road to recovery, Dennis finally got to meet Leo.
Where was I?
You were laying like right here.
On the 1-year anniversary of the accident, we met up with Leo at the site, and he kind of walked us through everything.
The Platt family thankful for the cadet that stepped up.
It's because of Leo's fearlessness to jump into action, his wisdom, his strength, and his selflessness that Dad's body did not suffer from lack of oxygen. He saved my dad's life, not just physically, but in full mind and spirit as well.
And now there's another word this cadet can proudly wear on his sleeve.
Leo, you will forever be remembered as a hero.
At This future firefighter says he was just doing his job.
I'm grateful that I was there at the right time and place and CPR certified thanks to the LAFD Cadet program. Thank you.
What a way to start off a career in public service. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. In for Tom Llamas, I'm Gotti Schwartz in New York. Stay right there. More news is on the way.